Good afternoon. China reported its first quarter GDP reading this morning. The headline number, we call it, is up 5.3%. This means that the GDP, the gross domestic product for China, grew 5.3% compared to the first quarter of last year, 2023. In other words, we compare Chinese GDP in January, February, March of this year, 2024, we compare it to January, February, March of 2023. This year's is 5.3% higher, so that's called the headline number. The next thing we look at is the previous quarter, which was 5.2%. So the fourth quarter of 2023 is October through December, and the GDP from that period is compared to the fourth quarter of the previous year, October, November, December 2022. And fourth quarter 2023 was up 5.2% over quarter four of the previous year. Now that we know those two things, 5.2% growth was registered in the last 3 months of 2023 and 5.3% growth in the first 3 months of 2024. So we can see that growth has been accelerating or moving faster. 5.3 is greater than 5.2. So when you're reading news stories about GDP growth numbers, those two numbers there are what always leads. And this was interesting, and lots of people are talking about it, and how China's factory sector is booming and causing lots of problems for manufacturers and exporters everywhere else. But we were surprised by something else, and it's reported in the internals. Now, gross domestic product is made up of several things: consumer spending, exports, government spending, and investment. We wanted to look at that, and it's at the very bottom of this report in the Wall Street Journal, and we're actually lucky because usually business news doesn't cover this part of it. And it says here on the last page, on the other hand, property investment fell 9.5% in the January-March period from a year earlier, widening from a 9.0% drop in the first 2 months of the year. And this is actually shocking, and it's another one of those things that is not supposed to happen. Property investment fell this quarter by 9.5%. Last quarter, it dropped 9.0%. So property investment, residential and commercial property investment, is falling and falling faster. And these numbers, over 9% falls, these are economic depression level readings. We mean that if the property investment falls this much, this fast, it means that the economy should be in a severe recession or even a depression. This chart here is from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and it tracks property investment in the United States going back to 1955. The dark blue line is non-residential investments. These are office buildings, shopping centers, warehouse space, stuff like that. The gray line is residential investment. These are single-family homes and apartment buildings. The gray vertical lines going up and down, these are economic recessions. And you can just see for yourself a number of things. The gray lines and the blue lines tend to move together most of the time, but also, every time those lines went negative, went down, or especially sharply negative, it was a recession. The steep drops, like in 1978 to 1983, or in 2008 to 2010, this was a deep recession during those times. So those data are from the United States then. But the Bank of International Settlements surveyed the same thing across 15 countries. They studied 99 recessions from across the world and say that drops in residential investment consistently lead economic declines, recessions, across the recessions that they studied from Europe and Asia. And here are the countries that the BIS were looking at. It's a long report, and we'll link to it. And the CH here in these tables, CH is Switzerland, actually, not China. So don't be confused if you read that. It is quite a thing for an economy to see its property investment sector implode by 10%, let's call it, and have growth in all the other sectors so strong that the reading for overall GDP is still positive by 5% plus. There has been a pivot here away from property investment and property speculation in particular to focus instead on manufacturing. China is determined to be the factory for the whole world in everything. And it's why Janet Yellen, the US Treasury Secretary, got on a plane and told Beijing to stop exporting so much. And it explains why Europe is telling China to stop exporting so much. And it explains why companies in the US and Europe are moving to China if they hope to stay in the export business themselves. So we're living in a strange world and reading some strange reports. 100% of the time, literally 100% of the time, when a country reports a sharp contraction, a deep decline in property investment, it means there's a severe recession going on, or depression. Except here, this time, GDP growth is up 5.3. That's not supposed to happen. And we say that a lot here. Enjoy your evening. Be good.
You cannot serve God and money. So do not be worried about your life, what you will eat, or what you'll drink, or what you'll wear.